I must begin with a confession. Don't tell your priest this. I'm a huge Purdue men's basketball fan, and I had to miss the game today, and it is killing me inside to find out if we won or lost. So can someone please put me out of my misery and let me know, did we win or lose? No.
About a 15-point deficit in not doing very well. Played a little first half.
Yeah, I heard about the first half. I guess we couldn't end the game then, right? All right, cool. All right, first of all, how is everyone doing?
Okay.
Wonderful, awake, no sleeping yet?
76
Fantastic.
to 62.
Misery, misery, misery. I should sit back down and turn over to my colleague here. All right, for those of you who may not know me, my name is Haroon Mohammed. I am currently a graduate student at Purdue University, and as you can see, I like to walk around, in the College of Veterinary Medicine. Like my fellow panelist, Robin, I have actually been a native Hoosier as well, having grown up on the corn and soybeans of Indiana for the last 24 and a half years. Also, I went through Durgan Elementary, which no longer exists anymore, sadly. I went through Klondike Elementary, Klondike Middle School, and then graduated home with the Harrison Raiders, go Raiders, and then decided to stay here and go to Purdue. So as you can see, I guess I'm never going to leave Lafayette, sadly. That's the running joke with all my friends. Today I've been asked to briefly talk about and touch upon the subject of Sharia. And I'm just curious, how many of you came to the panel discussion today because you saw the topic of Sharia, or Islamic law? Anybody?
I'm interested.
Interested. Excellent. One person. Fantastic. I've got one audience member. The rest of you can dip out for the next 15 minutes, or 12 minutes, or 5 minutes. How much I have? All right. When an individual who may not be familiar with the religion of Islam, when they hear the term Sharia, or Islamic law, oftentimes the images conjured in one's brain is that of a thief's hand getting cut off, or of an adulteress getting stoned, or of a woman being forced to don a very strange, funny-looking piece of cloth on her head or on her face. And that's about it. That's all that comes to mind when we hear the term Sharia. And the fear of having such actions being imposed upon the society that we live in the United States has led some of our politicians in states such as Tennessee and Oklahoma to try to adopt anti-Sharia legislation. Now, if you ask an adherent of Islam, if you ask a Muslim, any of our panelists, what comes to your mind when you hear the term Sharia? You get a completely different image. You get the image of a Muslim devoutly worshiping their Creator. You get the image of a Muslim in the month of Ramadan fasting. You get the image of a Muslim looking for members of society who are underprivileged and trying to give them charity. And this is in fact everything which falls in the realm of Sharia. Now our panelists have spoken very eloquently and very briefly, given the time constraints, about some of the rites, rituals, and practices which Islam has bestowed upon its adherents. But the logical question which begs to be asked is, where did the legislation for these rites and rituals come from? Who mandated, as Ihsan said in his speech, that Muslims must pray 5 times every day? I mean, if it was one, I think that'd be a lot easier, but who mandated we had to pray 5 times every day? Who mandated that we just fast in this month called Ramadan? Who mandated and gave rights to women, such as receiving inheritance, or the obligation or the right to basically reject a marriage proposal and not be forced or coerced into marriage? Where do these rituals and rites come from? The answer is very simple. The rites, the rituals, the practices that we have just discussed, they all come and fall within the realm of the term which is called Sharia. That's the beauty of it. Now the sources that Muslim scholars use to derive their understanding of Sharia come from 2 main places. The first being the Quran, the religious scripture that Muslims use, and the second being the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, as Ihsan pointed, who is considered the last human messenger to Muslims who is sent to mankind. Now while the rights and religious laws may encompass a part of the Sharia, the reality is that's not everything. So what then is Sharia, if it's not just rights and regulations? If we were to look at the definition of Sharia or Sharia law, which was used by sponsors of the anti-Sharia bill in Tennessee, and I actually went up and looked at this, we would find that Sharia was defined as a legal, political, and military doctrine. This definition has been expanded in some circles to mean that Sharia is a system of legal, political, military, and religious laws that calls its followers to overthrow the United States or Western governments through brutal force, acts of terrorism, and, my favorite, holy war, which is commonly referred to in the media as jihad. which by the way is not the correct definition of jihad, but we can talk about it in Q&A. In order, get this, in order to establish what? To establish Islam as the dominant religious power and government of the world. Just as a heads up, this definition probably sounds pretty scary to the average American citizen sitting in this room right now, and I can assure you I did not bring any guns, weapons, or anything of that nature to overthrow anyone in this room. But this definition is even scary to me as a Muslim-born U.S. citizen. Just stop and think of that for the moment. That scares me. And if you ask the average Muslim, is this what Sharia means? They would probably give you a very cross-looking stare and be like, I don't think so. That's not what I understand from my religion. And if you ask Muslim scholars, is this a definition of Sharia? Likewise, we get the same response. So Sharia literally in the Arabic language means a path, a way. Oh boy, 5 minutes. Within the context of the religion of Islam, Sharia is a set of moral principles and laws which provide a blueprint for how Muslims are supposed to live their life, how they're supposed to obtain God's mercy, and how they attain salvation. Roughly 70% of the Sharia covers rituals and acts of worship. So how do Muslims pray? How do we fast? 25% of the Sharia covers matters related to dietary limitations. For example, Muslims are not allowed to consume alcohol, as well as matters pertaining to economic and family matters, such as divorce, marriage, and so forth. And the remaining 5% of the Sharia focuses on criminal matters and what we do and how do we punish those who commit criminal acts, such as theft and murder. But the reality is that the punishments for such criminal acts cannot be enforced unless the government and the citizens of that nation, that state, that region choose to adopt Sharia as their form of law. That's very critical to understand. Is that it? Really? Okay, so in short, Sharia basically provides a framework. It provides a blueprint to educate Muslims on matters such as religious practices, civil matters, moral principles, and when applicable, how to deal with criminal matters. Very similar to what you would find with Christian theologians and Christian juristic practices. So the question that begs to be answered is this: what does the average Muslim in the United States of America want in their day-to-day affairs? Are Muslims literally trying to force citizens of the U.S. to drop their lifestyle and adopt a lifestyle, or quote-unquote Muslim lifestyle, where there's no, you have to live basically with no pork, no alcohol, adopt our clothing regulations and our religious practices? Is this what Muslims are calling for? Are Muslims actively or secretly trying to work in their mosques or religious centers to basically adopt Sharia as the form of legal government of the U.S.? Simply put, the answer is 2 letters. N-O. No. Muslims are looking for the same basic religious rights which are afforded to every U.S. citizen in this country. A right that is stipulated and declared very openly when it says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This, folks, is the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And it is a right and a privilege granted to every faith-based institution in this country. So in essence, Muslims, in short, we are not looking for the U.S. Constitution to be replaced with the Sharia, or for the U.S. government to adopt Islam as the official religion of the U.S. Muslims are simply looking for the opportunity, the right to pray in their religious centers, their mosques, their Islamic centers, without the fear of being persecuted or accused of doing something wrong. Muslims are looking for the opportunity to fulfill their religious obligations of marriage, to be able to obtain a religious marriage certificate, while also filing a civil marriage license in the U.S., in the government laws, just as required. Muslims are looking for the opportunity, because food is so important, right? Everyone enjoys food. I enjoy lunch, right? But we're looking for the opportunity to go to a grocery store, and if because there's a food that has a special H labeled for halal, people don't get freaked out and say, oh no, halal is taking over the grocery store now, right? We don't want this fear. I mean, we're not asking for any sort of special privileges here. Just as our members of our Jewish community were given the opportunity to have kosher products made on the shelves of Walmart and Costco and all other big places, eventually we would like to work towards having our own aisle or our own little small section that says halal. I hope there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Muslims are looking for the opportunity that when our mothers, our daughters, our wife, any other female relatives in the family that are forgotten, that if they choose to voluntarily walk out of their homes and go to school or go to the workforce, that they don't get castigated or denied the opportunity to come learn or educate themselves because they're wearing a veil or a hijab. So simply put, we're just looking for the same rights and responsibilities and opportunities that every other American has. And trying to implement the Sharia in our religious institutions is just one form that is a challenge for Muslims living in the U.S. I'm going to turn it over to Ahmed to kind of finish the discussion by explaining other challenges facing Muslims in the U.S. If you have any questions about what was discussed in this portion of the presentation, please do so asking